Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of my video series on series. So I did this last year and it will be split up into multiple parts. So this first part is on series that I have stopped reading and deciding that I'm not going to finish this series in the past year. So some of these I may have read the first book this year and then decided that I'm not going to continue, and some of them I have read the book in previous years and then decided that I have lost interest in them. So there's multiple reasons. There will be follow-up parts to this on series that I am up to date on, series that I am in the middle of, series that I have finished in 2021, and then hopefully I will do a complete series tier ranking or list of some sort, because I will very soon have read 100 series in my lifetime. So I was thinking once I hit that, not necessarily goal, but once I hit 100 series completed in my lifetime, I will do a video on all those series. So I guess in total there will be like 5 parts to this, and this is the first part on series that I have DNF'd. There are 15 series in total that I've decided that I'm not going to continue on with or finish. I will just go through them and I'll explain the reasonings as and when we get to them. Yeah, these are in the order that I stopped reading that series. The first one that I decided at the beginning of the year that I'm not going to continue on with is The City We Became. I read this last year in 2020. It was the shelf space pick. I can't remember for what month, but it was a shelf space pick at some point. And this is by N.K. Jemisin. I have really tried to like N.K. Jemisin. I read the whole of the 5th season series and I read The City We Became. And I just have never quite gelled with her writing style. And there are elements within The City We Became that I liked, which is why I didn't like DNF it straight away. I didn't decide as soon as I finished that book that I wasn't going to continue the series. But it's got to a point now where I don't have that much interest in continuing the series anymore. I know that N.K. Jemisin's writing style isn't for me. Like, the premises of her books really sound like they're for me, but everyone that I've tried to read, I just haven't connected to. There's just something that has stopped me like connecting with her writing style. She has a very distinct tone of voice, a very distinct style, and if you like it, you'll probably like all of her books. Whereas if you don't like it, I don't expect you to like any of her books. So I think that's where I'm at, and I'm just like, I know she's not for me. I'm just going to move that series along. Another one that I didn't decide that I'm not going to continue on straight away with is the Greatcoats Series by Sebastian de Castell. I read this for my taste test for reading Like Alan from the Library of Alexandria, which I can link. I loved the video, I loved doing the video, but unfortunately I didn't love the Greatcoats as much as Alan. I know how much he loves it. He loves that series so much. And I wish I did, because I watched like an interview that he did with Sebastian de Castell on his channel. I'm like, I wish I really liked your books, but I just didn't. I don't know, I just didn't connect. I just didn't connect with it. I don't think there was anything necessarily wrong with the writing or the characters. I just didn't connect to it. Didn't have any driving force to keep going with the series. I didn't like feel compelled to read it. I just didn't feel like, yeah, a connection. So after a few months I was like, I don't think I'm going to continue. Like, I might as well be picking up books that I think are going to be 5 stars and picking up a book that I think is going to be a 3-star. And based on my thoughts on the first book, I was like, I'm probably not going to love it. It's not going to be a 5-star book. So why should I be continuing on a series where I think every book's going to be 3 stars? The next one I'm really sad about, and that is The Library of the Unwritten by AJ Hackworth. I think it might be called Hell's Library, like the series title. Oh. Yeah, I absolutely adored The Library of the Unwritten. I loved that book. 5 stars. It was one of my favourites of 2020. I absolutely loved it. But the second one, oh, I just struggled. I struggled. And I don't know, like, it didn't feel like a proper story. Like, it was just not worth it. And so now I've just decided that I am considering the first book a standalone, and I'm forgetting that there was a second book, and I think there's going to be a third book, but I'm just forgetting that those exist, and I'm treating it as a standalone. In my head, the first book's a standalone. It's a 5-star standalone. So yeah, I'm very sad about that one. But I'd much rather have a 5-star standalone in my head than a subpar series. Then Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh. I have really liked Renee Ahdieh as a whole. Like, I have read the Wrath and Dawn duology. I am continuing to read the Beautiful series. I don't know how many books are going to be in it, but I'm going to keep going with that one. The Flame in the Mist, I really liked. I liked the book, but I read it so many years ago now, and that by the time I got to reading the second book, I'd forgotten everything. And I had the book out for months from the library. Like, I just kept renewing it. I had it for months and months and months. It was a crime how long I had that book out from the library, and I just never read it. And I was like, this book has sat on my shelf for months from the library. I really should have read this by now. And so after renewing it so many times, I was like, you're not going to read this book, are you, Abby? Like, you're just not going to read it. So I gave it back to the library, and I decided that that series, I'm just not going to finish it. There was nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but I'm just not going to finish it. The same can be said for Stalking Jack the Ripper. I don't think there's anything wrong with this series. This is by Kerry Maniscalco. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. I read the first 2 in that series, and then it got to a point like a year or so after I read the second one, and I was like, am I ever going to read the third one? I don't know. Don't know if I will. So after so much time had gone by, I was like, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Like, I didn't have the desire to pick up the third one, so I was like, right, well, off it goes. Like, it can go off into the DNF pile. Then Wicked Fox. I really liked Wicked Fox. I think it was really fun. It was a really fun story, and I really enjoyed it. But it's just, for me, it was a standalone, and then it was just like, let's have a standalone, but let's try and just throw some little tiny bit on at the end. The same happened with Girls of Paper and Fire. It was a standalone, and then they're like, let's just have an epilogue that makes this a series. So the same can be said for Wicked Fox, and so I think because of that, I was like, I don't need another book. I don't need another book in this world. I was really happy just reading that as a complete arc. Another one where I just lost interest as time had gone on was Iskari. The first book being The Last Namsara by Kristen Ciccarelli, which I liked. I read the first 2 books in the series. They were companion novels, so they were both complete stories in and of themselves. And I liked them. Like, I liked them, but I just don't feel the need to keep reading the series. Like, they were good, they were fine. They were like, that's the thing. They were just fine. Like, they weren't any favourites, but I enjoyed what I read. Now this one, I didn't enjoy what I read. This one I read this year. All of those ones I had read prior to 2021, aside from The Library of the Unwritten, which I read in February, the second book. But all of those other ones I had read prior to 2021 starting, and it wasn't that I read a new book in the series, or it wasn't I read a book in the series this year. It was that I realised that too much time had gone by and I'd lost interest, whereas it was starting to move into some of the ones where I did read this year and then did decide it wasn't for me. The first one being the Bone Ships. I was reading the Bone Ships for a video that I was doing, and I never posted the video because literally every book that I read I didn't like. So, and then I was like, I just scrapped the whole video. I scrapped it because I just didn't like anything that I was reading for it, and I was like, it just wasn't fun. It wasn't fun, and that was really unfortunate. But the books, I went in with high expectations. It wasn't like I was reading them thinking I was going to hate them. I just didn't like them, however much I wanted to. So the Bone Ships, I just didn't like it. It was boring. Oh, so boring. That sounds really harsh. That sounds really harsh. I didn't like the characters. There was only one really interesting character, which was like this creature. I can't remember what it's called, but like this creature, that was really interesting. I think the world building could have been really interesting. I just didn't like the way it was given to us as the reader. It felt like there was, at the beginning, it was really clunky, the way that we were given the world building. So the elements of this world that I think could have been really, really interesting, we just weren't presented with it in a way that I liked. Again, it's one of those books where you're told you're gonna have dragons and there was hardly any dragons in it, and I was like, I'm fed up with books telling me they're gonna be about dragons and then there's no dragons in them. Like, can we just stop? Can you stop putting dragons on book covers and then there's literally one scene with a dragon or no dragons? Oh, it's been a theme and I'm fed up with it. So maybe by the time I got to the Bone Ships, that was just one fake dragon too many. It's like fake news, fake dragons. It's a big pet peeve. Big pet peeve. That one, I'm not very good at DNFing books. I wish, sometimes in that one I wish that I was, because I probably should have DNF'd that book. But I'm not very good at DNFing a book. I'm not very good at saying, like getting to, I don't know, 25% and going, this is enough. But I am very good at DNFing a series. So I finished the Bone Ships and I won't be reading the rest of them. The same with Sleeping Giants. And the Sleeping Giants I read really quickly. Like, I think the audiobook was really good. I just didn't connect. I think because the way the Sleeping Giants is told in an interview style format, which makes it a really quick read because you're compelled to keep going and you're compelled to keep reading. But I didn't have any connection to the characters because you're never in their heads. The only insight you get into the characters is what they're saying in the interview. And so I was like, well, I just can't see you as people. I can't see your characteristics. I can't see who you are. And so I just didn't have any connection to it, or to their lives, or to their story, because it felt very jumpy. Like, you just jump from one point to the next because you weren't getting the story of their lives and the story of what was going on. You were just getting what they said in the interviews, which potentially does work for someone, because that's what, maybe I should have known that going in, but I just felt like I was missing so much, and so I just didn't have any connection. I mean, I think the twist at the end was good, and it did compel me to be like, do I actually want to keep going? And I was like, no, Abby, no, you didn't have fun. Just because it's a quick read doesn't mean you should keep going with the series knowing that you're going to give every book like 2-3 stars. And for a lot of people, I think Sleeping Giants was the best book in the series, and it just went downhill, so I don't think I would have enjoyed the rest of the series any better. One that I read in 2020 and then decided this year that I wasn't going to continue with is Dark Shores by Danielle L. Jensen. This is, well, I was hoping it was going to be like a pirate fantasy romance book. And it does have some of those elements, but I think it read very YA. I've enjoyed a lot of Danielle L. Jensen's books. I really have liked the Stolen Songbird series that she has done, and the Bridge Kingdom one. That one I read this year. I really liked it. So I've liked the ones where she leans more new adult, whereas this one lent very YA, and so it just felt a bit insta-lovey and tropey, and I just, although a lot of it I would have liked, a lot of the world I would have liked, and the plot, it just lent a bit too young, I'd say, for me. And so although I had fun with the first book, I don't feel compelled to keep going with the series. And then I guess this one as well, I read right at the very end of 2020, the last book that was out, and that's the Fortuna Sworn series. So I've read the 3 books that are out, and I believe the 4th book is coming out later on this year, maybe it's December. But I have liked it, and I think if the whole series had been out when I read the first 2, I would have binged the whole thing. If it was all available, I probably would have just binged it, because I think it is a very bingeable fantasy romance. But I think because not all of the books were out, I have lost interest as time has gone on. I found the 3rd book to be quite slow and convoluted and meandering, perfect word, meandering. The 3rd book was meandering, and so I just lost interest as I went through the 3rd book. I just found the 3rd book so sloggy. Is that a word? No, the 3rd book was a slog. There we go. That's the way to phrase it. And then it's been a year or so since then, and since I read that book, and so I have just gradually lost more and more interest in it. And yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. The same can be said for Radiance. This is one again that I read in 2020, and I under-nerd for quite a while about whether I wanted to continue with the series, because I enjoyed Radiance. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. But upon talking to some other people, I put this one in my should I continue with these series video. A few of these at the end of this list were in that video, should I continue in these series, and asking your opinions on whether I should keep going. And from people that have loved Radiance, so my friend Leanna's Library, she loves Radiance and that book, but she said the rest of the series is just not worth it. And although me and Leanna's tastes differ on many things, I will trust her in this one. It's been so long now since I read it, and I haven't had this burning interest in keeping going, so I will just leave it. Another one of the series from that video was the Awakens series by Elise Kova. I started reading this year. I read 3 of the 5 books in the series, and they progressively got worse as I went along. I really liked the first book. I found the first book really, really interesting. I really liked the setting with the magic and the romance and the library castle setting. So I really liked that. I liked our characters. I liked the sort of way the plot developed. So there was lots of elements of that I liked. The second book felt like a traveling story. There was lots of travel going on. I was like, okay, fine. By the time we got to the 3rd book, I was like, we've done the traveling now. We've done the traveling. We should be moving on with the plot. And then the 3rd book it just really sort of stagnated a little bit. And I was like, there were so many aspects of it and themes, which I think could have been done really well, but they just weren't. So I was like, I didn't like the execution of those themes. I just don't think that I'm going to absolutely love books 4 and 5. And so I just think I'm just going to leave it. Like there's elements that I really like. I liked the characters, I liked the writing style, and I probably will read more Elise Kova. I probably will, because I do like what she was trying to do with the series, but it's just not a favourite. Yeah, this one I'm a little bit on the fence with. It was in my should I continue with these series or not, and I feel as though a lot of people haven't read this series, so there wasn't that much people couldn't really say, or some people have read the first book but they hadn't continued, like me, and that is the Kingdom of Souls series by Rana Barron. So I read the first book, and I've got it here, and I liked it. I did like it. I think it was a really interesting magic system. I liked the setting, I liked the characters. it is YA, and I feel like with me and YA and where I am now, if I'm reading YA, I just need to read the whole series through. Like, I shouldn't have big gaps, and because the second book wasn't released when I read this, I had to have the big gap. I couldn't read it all the way through, and so I don't know if I've just lost interest a little bit. But then I also haven't seen that many reviews of the second book to know whether whether it's really good and whether the rest of the trilogy is amazing. I feel like potentially if I saw really good reviews for the second and third book, then that would probably re-spark my interest in this series. So I feel like I might just put this series on pause. I don't know if this one's like a full-on never going to come back to it, unlike some of these other ones which I'm like, I'm never going to come back to it. Whereas for this one, I feel like there is potential that I could come back to this, but I'm not certain. So the final one that I am not continuing in is Dune by Frank Herbert. I read this earlier this year prior to the film coming out because I wanted to read it before seeing the adaptation, and it just wasn't for me. I really liked the first half. There's lots of themes within that book that I find really, really interesting. I actually quite liked the writing style, and there's a lot that I really liked. I just was not a massive fan of the characterization. And I don't think it was executed as well as I would have liked. Yeah, there were just some characterizations that I did not like. I think part of that is because I'm reading it with the lens of someone from the 21st century and as a woman, and as a character-driven reader, I did not connect to the characters. That if you're reading for the themes, then it's probably a great book for you. But as someone who enjoys themes for the discussion that they can promote, I don't find themes fun and engaging and exciting to read about. They don't compel me to keep reading a book. It's characters and plot that will compel me to read a book, not the themes. So that's why I won't be continuing with Dune. No. Those are the 15 series that I will not be continuing with, that I've decided these are no longer for me, and that is it. We are drawing a line under them. I'm moving on with my life to brighter pastures, and we'll be picking up other series. So if any of these are your absolute favourite series, I am really, really happy for you. I mean, for a lot of these, I don't think they're bad series, they just weren't for me. And that's the thing, there aren't necessarily like bad books, there's just books that aren't for you. And unfortunately, these were just not for me, and hopefully I have done a lot of unhauling and these can all go off into other people's homes and spread joy. I hope you will stick around for the next parts in my video series on series, yet to be filmed, but coming before the end of the year. And thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!